Hello, you're listening to On This Day with Brian Byrne. It's the 22nd of May 2020. On this day in 1936, Aer Lingus was registered as an airline. The airline's development from then to today is in its own way a history of the development of commercial passenger aircraft. 5 days after registration, the new airline began its first service between Baldonnel Airfield in County Dublin and Bristol in England. The plane was a 6-seater de Havilland Dragon named Iller, the Irish for Eagle. A second 14-seater de Havilland Express aircraft acquired later in the year allowed the company to begin a Dublin to Liverpool service as well as extend the Dublin to Bristol route to Croydon in London. The airline's first boss was Dr. Jerry Dempsey, an accountant on loan from the Kennedy Crowley and Company accountancy firm as company secretary to the new enterprise. He never went back to his old job, was appointed general manager in 1937 and stayed with Aer Lingus for 30 years. By 1938 the airline was flying 3 de Havilland biplanes, including a Rapide, and 2 new Lockheed 14 monoplanes, the first all-metal aircraft and also 14-seaters. A Douglas DC-3 was bought in 1940, at the same time as Aer Lingus moved operations to the new Dublin Airport at Collinstown. But during the war the only service was to Liverpool or Manchester, depending on the security situation. When regular services were resumed in late 1945, the Dublin to London direct flight was inaugurated with the DC-3. From then, through the 1950s, routes to Brussels, Amsterdam via Manchester and to Rome were established. From its fleet of mainly DC-3s, the company added Vickers Viscounts and also established an all-cargo service with Bristol 170 freighters. In 1958, the first Airlinta transatlantic service from Shannon to New York was established. A previous attempt to operate transatlantic in 1947 had been stopped by incoming Fine Gael Taoiseach John A. Costello. He thought flying the Atlantic was a grandiose scheme not appropriate for a small country like Ireland. Those first transatlantic flights were operated by Lockheed Super Constellations, leased from an American airline. But in 1960 the company acquired 3 Boeing 720 jets and established a second U.S. destination, Boston. 4 years later the first Boeing 707 was delivered, and this type of aircraft was used until the late 1980s. Just before he retired in 1967, Dr. Jerry Dempsey signed the contract for the airline's first Boeing 747 jumbo jets. 2 years later, Boeing 737s were introduced to serve the growing demand on the Dublin to London route, and the aircraft type was expanded to all European routes. The Airbus A330 was introduced on the Dublin to US routes in 1994, and in the following year, after 25 years of service, the 747 jumbos were phased out. They had carried over 8 million passengers. For European operations, the Airbus A321 short-haul jet was bought in 1998 for Dublin Heathrow. Through to late 2005, Airbus aircraft gradually replaced all the Boeings on the Aer Lingus fleet. At the moment, 9 A350s are on order. Through its life, Aer Lingus has also operated Vickers Vikings briefly in 1947, Fokker Friendships in the early 1960s, Carvair car transport aircraft around that same time, and BAC-111 jets. Short 360 turboprops were used on domestic commuter services set up in the 1980s, and a number of DC-8s became part of the fleet when Aer Lingus took control of the freight service Air Tourist. Aer Lingus was publicly floated in October 1996. Rival Ryanair bought a strong shareholding and in 2006 tried to buy the former Irish flag carrier. That bid was blocked by the European Commission in 2007. A second bid in 2008 through 2009 was rejected by shareholders. A third attempt to buy the company in 2012 was again blocked by the European Commission. In 2014, International Airlines Group, owner of British Airways, Iberia and Vueling, began the first of 3 attempts to buy Aer Lingus and succeeded in September 2015. Today Aer Lingus operates 56 aircraft and has 15 on order. The original Iller was sold in 1938 and was lost while on military service in World War II. A similar Dragon was bought by Aer Lingus in 1967 and renamed the Iller. After several periods of storage and service at air shows, it was made airworthy again for the airline's 75th anniversary in May 2011. Today it is one of only 2 airworthy Dragons in Europe. Happy birthday, Aer Lingus.